Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to break down a brilliant, high-stakes psychological manipulation that triggers literally one of the most infamous games of dice in all of literary history. We're looking at a classic confrontation that is, honestly, an absolute masterclass in how rigid morality can be weaponized against the very person holding it. It's a wildly fascinating dynamic, and you'll see pretty quickly that it's just as relevant to our understanding of human nature today as it was back in the ancient world. Let's get right into it.
Right off the bat, we've got our protagonist, Yudhishthira, making a bold, totally unequivocal stand against corruption before a single die is even cast. He flat out says, deceitful gambling is sinful. For him, there is absolutely zero gray area here. He's laying down the absolute moral law from his perspective, drawing this massive line in the sand about what is right and what is wrong. And this brings us to the core dilemma that I really want you to keep in the back of your mind as we go through this. So, ask yourself, how exactly can a rigidly principled person survive a completely rigged system? Seriously, when you're playing a game with someone who fundamentally refuses to acknowledge the basic rules of fairness, does your morality actually protect you, or does it just paint a massive target on your back? To understand how this trap is actually set, we have to look at how the scene opens. We're going to see how the polite formalities and deep traditional respect of the ancient world are abruptly and very deliberately shattered by our antagonist. It's all a power play, establishing dominance right out of the gate. The text paints a very specific picture of this gathering assembly. The sons of Pritha, led by Yudhishthira, walk into this grand assembly house. They respectfully salute all the kings present, carefully honoring them based on their age and their merit. Then they calmly sit down on these clean, costly carpets. But right while Yudhishthira is honoring all this traditional decorum, Sakuni aggressively forces his own agenda. He just interrupts the piece, demanding that they stop waiting around, instantly cast the dice, and fix the rules of play. It's a highly calculated disruption of order.
Now, Yudhishthira is smart. He instantly recognizes the danger in Sakuni's sudden aggression. So, to defend himself, he attempts to build this intellectual fortress of morality right there in the middle of the assembly room. He's trying to frame the coming game not as some careless pastime, but as a definitive test of righteous character. This perfectly illustrates the massive ideological clash at the heart of our explainer. On one side, you have Yudhishthira, who views greatness strictly through the lens of an honest war. For him, straightforwardness is everything. War without crookedness or cunning is the true act of an honest man. It's all about integrity, right? But then in stark contrast, you have Sakuni championing this ruthless pragmatism. Sakuni defines a high-souled player as someone who is highly skilled in baffling the deceitful arts of his opponent, someone united in all the diverse operations of gambling. Sakuni isn't looking for an honest war. He's looking for a strategic slaughter.
Desperate to hold on to the moral high ground, Yudhishthira invokes the wisdom of the Muni Devala. He brings out this quote, "To obtain victory in battle without cunning or stratagem is the best sport." He's actively trying to remind everyone in that room that true prowess, that real warrior spirit, never relies on cheap deceit to secure a win. He even goes a step further and lays out strict boundaries for the contest. He's practically begging Sakuni not to play like a wretch. He tells him, look, do not use desperate stakes. He points out that respectable men don't use the deceitful language of the mlekches. And most importantly, he pleads with Sakuni not to risk the wealth meant to benefit the brahmanas. Yudhishthira is really trying to appeal to Sakuni's sense of societal duty and religious respect, just hoping that these boundaries will keep the game from totally spiraling out of control. But Sakuni? Yeah, he's not swayed by earnest appeals to morality or duty. The guy is an absolute master of rhetoric. Instead of defending himself against the charge of deceit, he completely flips the script. He takes the very concept of deceit and redefines it, turning it into a virtue of intelligence and skill. To build up his argument, Sakuni rationalizes his ruthless style of gambling by claiming it's just the natural law of the universe. He's like, look, it is completely normal for the highborn to approach the lowborn with a desire to win. The learned naturally approach the unlearned to defeat them. The skilled approach the unskilled, and the strong approach the weak. He's arguing this isn't dishonest at all. This is literally the practice in every single contest in life. The strong, skilled, and learned inevitably conquer the weak and unlearned. It is a chillingly logical justification for absolute ruthlessness. So here is the crucial moment where Sakuni weaponizes Yudhishthira's own honor against him. He strips away all the high-minded philosophical talk and just says, the motive is victory, O Yudhishthira. And then he drops the ultimate challenge. If Yudhishthira thinks Sakuni is dishonest, or more to the point, if he's under any fear, well, he should just desist from play and walk away. He is overtly calling him a coward in front of an entire assembly of kings. And boom. This calculated insult directly triggers our protagonist's tragic flaw. By questioning his courage and his willingness to face the challenge, Sakuni springs the psychological trap wide open. There is no intellectual fortress in the world that can protect Yudhishthira from a direct, aggressive attack on his core identity.
Bound by his rigid moral code, Yudhishthira declares his established vow, summoned, I do not withdraw. He flat out refuses to back down when called out. It brilliantly and quite tragically proves that sometimes your greatest virtue, your unwavering commitment to your vows, can be expertly exploited as your fatal weakness. Sakuni knew exactly which button to push to get exactly what he wanted.
What's truly fascinating here is the sheer weight of Yudhishthira's resignation. Realizing he's been outmaneuvered and is now bound to play a game he inherently knows is totally crooked, he just completely surrenders his personal agency. He says, fate is all-powerful. We all are under the control of destiny. He literally stops fighting the trap and just accepts that whatever happens next is entirely out of his hands. It is such a tragic moment of collapse for a guy who started out with such a strong moral stance.
With Yudhishthira now fully committed, having stated his vow and surrendered to fate, his opponents reveal the final insult. This is the mechanical loophole designed to guarantee their absolute victory, completely destroying any remaining illusion of fairness in that room.
To understand exactly how rigged this setup becomes, let's quickly define this concept of playing by agency, or proxy. Basically, it's the act of gambling or competing for your own sake through the actions and skills of another person. And this is exactly the loophole Duryodhana exploits, so he doesn't have to risk his own absolute lack of skill in this high-stakes arena.
Duryodhana proudly announces the terms of this rigged setup to the whole room. He says he's going to supply all the jewels, the gems, every kind of wealth. He's got the endless capital, right? But he isn't going to roll the dice himself. Nope. His uncle, Sakuni, the master gambler, who literally just finished explaining how the skilled naturally dominate the unskilled, will actually play the game on Duryodhana's behalf. They've completely separated the financial risk from the actual execution of the game. So now, Yudhishthira has to face the endless wealth of a king wielded by the unparalleled skill of a master cheat.
Even at this final moment, Yudhishthira's intellect hasn't completely failed him. He immediately points out that gambling for one's sake by the agency of another seems entirely contrary to the rule. He knows it's a scam. He sees it, but his vow has already trapped him. Instead of walking away from a blatantly broken game, he tragically concedes, telling his opponents, let the play begin.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to reflect on Yudhishthira's profound downfall here. When your opponent actively refuses to play by the rules and deliberately twists your own principles against you, what happens to your morality? Is strict adherence to your own honor a badge of unwavering strength? Or is it the exact vulnerability they need to completely destroy you? Thanks for exploring this fascinating dynamic with me, and definitely keep questioning how the rules of the game are written.